We suspected there would be quite a bit of public interest in this case, and so we wanted to make ourselves available to answer questions from the public about this matter. Obviously, we filed the lawsuit today. This case is about keeping the public and keeping all of us safe from drunk driving, keeping the community safe, and doing what we can to combat drunk driving, especially in South Carolina, where we have a, unfortunately, particularly high instance of drunk driving. We've performed our own investigation into this matter. We've been cooperating with law enforcement however we can, and we felt confident enough to be ready to file the lawsuit based on what we had found out so far. Obviously, our investigation is still ongoing, but we had enough information at this point and had confirmed enough of the facts that we felt confident filing the lawsuit, and that's why we're here today. At this point, I'll take questions.
Talk about that investigation. You know, we've been hearing a lot of different stuff. We've got a lot of different parties telling us, hey, settle down, let that investigation go, answer to everybody. What did you find out?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There was a lot of chatter, obviously, about this case in every channel imaginable. And so parsing through what was true, what wasn't true, what had blown up from social media and become something that it wasn't, that was part of our investigation. Again, cooperating with law enforcement is a really important piece. We trust them. We have a lot of confidence in them. They're handling this with a lot of delicacy and the attention that it deserves. I don't want to give too much away about our investigation because it's still ongoing. There's still facts and a lot of questions that haven't been answered, which is part of the reason we wanted to file the lawsuit, was to get into the formal discovery process where we and the families can get more definite answers to some of the questions that are still a little vague to us.
Could you talk to us a little more about Taco Boy specifically and the, I understand you're saying the suspect worked there and there was some sort of party. Give us more detail that you may have on that. Yeah,
and we tried to be as clear as we could in the complaint itself about what we were alleging. We weren't trying to beat around the bush or be vague. As far as Taco Boy is concerned, what our investigation yielded was that she had been an employee of Taco Boy, for a short period of time, not very long, and that there was a almost routine gathering to go out to bars or a bar after their shifts, or in the middle of their shifts, or at different times, and that supervisors would also attend those gatherings or those events, call them what they were, and that she had attended this and that there was significant drinking at that event. And so there's a responsibility, especially when you have a supervisory role, but as an employer, to act responsibly in that role as employer and supervisor. And we felt that that was not done here and that it was breached.
Where and when was that event with Taco Boy employees on April 28th?
It was the evening of the 28th. As far as where it was, that's still a little bit unclear to us. That's one of the questions that we want confirmation to. We have an idea. We feel pretty confident that we know at least one place that it occurred. But we're still trying to firm that up and figure out if there were additional places where that activity or event continued on to.
Where was that one place?
We don't feel comfortable disclosing that yet because we're trying to confirm before we share things with the public. We don't want to have to back anything away, and so what we've shared, what we've put in the complaint, is what we feel very confident about. As far as which place and in what sequence or which order, or was it the only place, we're still trying to firm that up.
And I know that there were a number of bars that are part of this complaint, and one of the things you guys address is the fact that she was visibly intoxicated. How did you determine she was visibly intoxicated? Was that from video or just eyewitnesses?
I think the answer to that question is yes. There's obviously a lot of sources that can confirm or help shed light on what the actual conditions were. And some parties are being more cooperative than others. Some sources have been more helpful than others. But the answer is yes, and we feel confident again about what we put in the complaint.
Was that video, pictures, or just testimony?
Both.
Will you be able to share any of those videos or photos with us?
At this point, we can't. At some point during litigation, I suspect that they'll be shared by someone. I think the public wants to see it, but more importantly, I think the public has a right to see what happened and what was actually true, and who ought to share in some of the responsibility for this.
You mentioned in the complaint that Taco Boy employees knew or should have known that Jamie Komorowski had a history of alcohol abuse. Can you tell us more about that history and how you know it?
Yeah, so part of that is public record that anyone can get access to, and a little bit of her history. Other parts were yielded or garnered from our investigation into her background and her immediate history over the last year or so from various sources.
When you say public record, are you talking about social media, or are there other?
Both social media and law enforcement sources.
So moving forward, how do you plan to investigate each bar, and what evidence will you be looking for?
That's a great question. We hope that the bars will cooperate with us and provide whatever they have. I would think that given the tragic nature of this case, that they would want to own up to whatever happened or didn't happen, for that matter. And so we've seen cooperation from some, like I said, from some parties. Others are tightening up a little bit. Some of the questions that we still would like answered are, what was the sequence of events, for example? We have a good idea, but we need them to help us firm that up. And unfortunately, that's going to require them to respond to our discovery requests.
How is the groom doing? What is this process been like for him?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I keep saying you can imagine what he's going through, but honestly, I can't imagine it. You go from the happiest moment of your life to an unfathomable tragedy. We are very, very honored to represent not just the groom, but all the survivors from this terrible accident. And they are wonderful people. They are just great people, and I hope that you guys get a chance to see that and hear from them a little bit. Currently, they're all recovering physically and emotionally, as you can imagine. The groom himself is doing okay. We're in very close contact with him. We visit with him regularly. He's got a wonderful, tight-knit family, both on his side and from his late wife's side. And so he's fortunate to have a really, really great support system. But it's going to be a long path ahead, as you can imagine.
I know you can't talk about your evidence specifically, but I mean, you've had private investigators all over this feeding you things. I mean, describe the confidence in the evidence that you have found and talk to everybody.
Yeah. So some of the bars that we've named, and I won't go into too much detail on that, but some of the bars that we've named, we have everything that we would want. Our investigation is somewhat complete in that regard. Other bars, we know enough to name them in the complaint, and we feel confident that there is responsibility there, but we're still waiting for, there's additional information that we need as part of the legal process. You know, the standard is higher. We can't just throw allegations around, and so there's more information that's needed for some of the other entities.
And so are you saying as well that there could be other bars that aren't even mentioned in the lawsuit at all, or?
Appreciate that question. Potentially, and one of the purposes in getting out in front of this is, you know, the public has a lot of interest in this case and this matter. If anyone does have information from the public, we'd love to hear from them about, you know, providing clarity about the sequence of events, or if there were other entities or bars that were missing from this, or other places. We feel pretty confident that we've gotten everyone and everything, and we wouldn't file the lawsuit if we felt like we were missing something big. But that's not to say that we're 100% certain that we've caught and gotten everyone and everything. But we do feel confident in what we have, and that we believe this to be everyone that might bear responsibility.
Can you talk a little bit, I don't know if you can, about the injuries of the groom and the other two people around?
Yeah. As you can imagine, it's kind of an answer that changes every day. That you talk to them. We check in with them on a daily basis to see how they're doing. There was a minor involved in the accident. Fortunately, he was relatively okay compared to the others. But you can imagine seeing your father bloody and unconscious on the ground. You're not going to be okay from that. Ben Garrett, who is the brother-in-law of the groom, and he and his family are from Utah, he was able to finally go back home and fly home and be with his family, which was really a great event. The family was split up until that point. Their dad's here in South Carolina, so getting him home was really, really important to them. He's doing well. They're in good spirits, but he's being treated at the burn unit in Salt Lake City. And then the groom has his injuries are still up in the air a little bit. He's doing well, and he's talking with everyone. He's out and about. He lives up a large flight of stairs, and so it takes him a while to hobble up and down any stairs. But he's optimistic, and luckily he has a great medical team providing his care.
I'm sorry in advance for this question. But
Yeah.
The lawsuit mentioned, this is the first I'm hearing of it, and I've read all of the affidavits coming from police.
Sure.
It said that Sam, the deceased, had conscious suffering mentally and physically before her death.
Yeah.
That was news to me. I'm wondering how long that lasted and how you know about that.
Yeah, that is from witnesses. We don't believe that it was very long, but we don't have clarity on for sure what that was. And I think it's going to be hard to get a definite picture of that, just given the chaos that was going on and how much was happening at that time. But we are under the belief, based on the evidence that our investigation uncovered, that there was some period of her appreciating what had happened. No matter how short that was, you can imagine the horror of that.
Okay, so day after tomorrow's paydays, lots of people get together for a beer and a sandwich after work with their boss. Can you give a message out to those people? There'll be about 300,000 people watching your press conference tonight. I'm going to take a minute to tell them to be careful.
Yeah, honestly, the message, and the family wants this same thing. If there's anything positive that can come out of this tragedy, it's use this as an example. We all can share responsibility in combating drunk driving. Talk to your friend, talk to your employees. Don't let your employees do this. Don't encourage your employees to do this. If you see something, say something. But we all can play a role in combating drunk driving in our community, and frankly, we all benefit from it. That's the message that I think has to go out, and those that bear responsibility for this are going to have to take responsibility for this.
Anything else you didn't mention?
What's next? What goes from here on out?
Yeah. What's next is, the family will continue to recover. We'll proceed with the lawsuit. The family is anxious. The things they want are justice, obviously. They have great faith in the criminal proceeding and the justice system. And so they're not out to crucify or vilify anyone from this. So they're kind of taking that approach to it. But they do want answers. They do want the closure of understanding what happened, why did it happen, and then again the lesson that can be taken away from this, if this stops one person from getting in their car while intoxicated, or helps someone have the courage to step up and stop that from happening, or helps an establishment really take a hard stand on over-serving people, that's something positive that can come out of this.
About those answers, your detectives, you guys bumping up the less than illegal leads. Anybody lying to you?
I'm trying to think. Honestly, so far people have either been very cooperative or they've shut down and they don't want to talk. So that's been fortunate so far. I can understand wanting to shut down a little bit, but for the most part people have been helpful and supportive of trying to get to the bottom of this. Obviously everyone's hearts go out to the survivors and the families that have been impacted by this, and so I think the community's desire to help has been really, really positive and overwhelming. I would close, if there are no other questions, I'd close with that. I know the family has wanted to take every opportunity they could to express gratitude to the community for the outpouring of love and support that they've seen. In such a dark time, it's really given them a little bit of hope in humanity when you're at your lowest, and to see how positive people can be. Any other questions?
You guys want to get a minute of just forklift noise so that you can
Apologize for that. Yeah, we're dealing with that every day. Appreciate you guys coming out. We're happy to talk with you if you have any other questions.